So today we're going to be covering three key topics. First, the latest updates in Windows 11. Second, and eagerly, I'm sure, for many of you on the line, the Microsoft pricing changes that are coming into effect April 1st. We'll make sure that everybody on the line today goes away from this meeting understanding the impact on their business. And third, some recent enterprise agreement updates that Microsoft has been working through that you might not be aware of yet that might actually impact your account. Again, our goal today is to make sure that you can navigate all of these changes and more with the support of our team as you come out of today's session. To help guide us through today's discussion, we're going to be joined by two fantastic speakers. First, we have Alex Laflemme. Alex has over 20 years of experience in the industry and he focuses entirely on Microsoft. Alex has seen it all, and I'm sure that Microsoft has been keeping him busy with all of the updates that continue to happen. Also joining us today is Al Quadros. Al is a new addition to the QuadBridge team, and he recently joined us in the role of VP of Pre-Sales and Professional Services. We're absolutely thrilled to have Al on board, and even more excited to have him join us here for today's session live and speak with all of you today. So Alex and Al, welcome. And Alex, I will hand it over to you to get us started.
Thanks so much, Melanie. That's quite an introduction to everyone. I hope I can live up to it. I know Al will. No pressure. And it is, in the air, right? Like spring is coming up this week, and we are looking, especially in Canada, to do like a spring cleaning. Making sure that we are setting ourselves up for summer, that the time of the year most of us enjoy more. So it's with that in mind that we want to share, the updates on the Microsoft ecosystem with your valued customers, so that they can make better decisions as to what they'll want to do for the upcoming summer and the upcoming fiscal year. So for the first one, the Windows 10 update. So hopefully this is not the first time that you're hearing this. Windows 10 is going end of service or end of life in October of 2025. What this means is that there's not going to be any more security updates. Why do we care about security updates? If you've ever consulted the news, whether it's Canadian news, international news, you will see from time to time like big events of like a ransomware or hackers, bad actors attacked, like people losing their data, things like that. Whenever it comes to Windows 10, as Manali indicated, like the most widely used operating system in the world, it is constantly under attack. They're constantly looking for flaws, ways to get into the system. So right now, and for the past several years, every week, there's been updates on that operating system. That's part of the beauty of the cloud, but those are going away as of October. So you will need to upgrade to Windows 11, but not every computer is able to upgrade to Windows 11. It's a lot like, different cars, different, types of fuel, or, different batteries. If we're talking about EVs, not everything is compatible. So it's going to be very important right now, not wait until October when you get the notification you are no longer covered for updates, but right now to think about what you're going to want to do ahead of time. Because if part of your plan is to order new devices, with again everything that's been going on in the world lately, you want to plan this long ahead of time. You want to secure those devices.
Thanks, Alex. And I'll invite Al to jump in to talk about how we can work through that process.
Alex said it really well, Melanie. No security updates, no software updates, and no technical support from Microsoft come October 14th, 2025. So mark that date down. That's a line in the sand, so to speak. Now, you can get extended support from Microsoft, but that comes at a price. It's $30 US per user per device. However, that's limited too. It's only support for critical security updates, but no bug fixes, no enhancements, no patching, and no other technical assistance from Microsoft. So you got to make sure that, as Alex talked about, as you look at the applications, that work on Windows 10, you got to make sure that, you do proper testing on Windows 11. And that's where QuadBridge, with our methodology of assess, implement, and manage, can help you make that successful transition seamless to your end users with minimal or no impact to them well before October 2025.
Thanks everyone. So big headline there, Windows 10, it's time to really have a plan in place to make sure that you are not caught off guard by any updates that you need to make there. Let's continue along to our second big update of the day, pricing changes. I know we're so excited. Alex, what is going on in the world of Microsoft pricing?
Well, as with everything in life, except for eggs, apparently eggs are on their own trajectory, exponentially more expensive. But for everything else in life, things have been getting more expensive. And Microsoft is no different. So for the past couple of years, we've started to understand the new licensing structure from Microsoft's new commerce experience, where you have annual contracts or monthly type licenses. And up to today, still the next several days, it works in two tracks. You have the annual track, which gives one price, either paid upfront annually or divided into 12 monthly payments. And then you have the monthly price, which has a 20% premium because there is no commitment. So whenever you want to have more flexibility, the trade-off is a little bit more expensive. But as we near April 1st, there's going to be a change on that. Microsoft is introducing a third price track. So now you're going to have annual paid annually stays the same. No change. That's the one price. But the annual commitment paid monthly is going to have a 5% increase. The month-to-month pricing is not changing. So again, it's only one of the three options that is changing. It's just that you weren't really aware that it was a third option before the price changed, since it was the same price as annual paid annually. So now you'll have to, again, much like whenever you're doing a big spring cleaning, you have to know where to start and what you want to do. So you're going to want to have that discussion either internally or with your QuadBridge account manager as to which track and which proportion of your users need to be on each track so that you can save some money or not overspend and still keep some of that flexibility should you need it. And one other quick thing is just because Al said something really good earlier about the October 14th date to write it down on your calendar. And I want to add if you don't write it down, bad actors definitely will. They're waiting for that date. So back to the price change. So this 105% versus the annual paid annually price does apply to all Microsoft licensing. So whether it be Microsoft 365, Office 365, the EMS suite, Windows 365, the cloud PC, all of the Dynamics 365 services, whether it's Business Central or those per app plans. The Power Platform is also being liable for this. All of the Teams phone SKU. And fairly recently, back in December, it was announced that Copilot would have a annual paid monthly, but it would be more expensive. It now falls in line with the rest of these products. So Copilot was a bit of a pilot program for this new pricing structure. Sorry about the pun. And now it's standardized across all Microsoft products. So you have annual one price, annual monthly another price, and monthly for that third price. As far as what happens, for the subscriptions, the types of subscriptions that you have already, the new ones that are coming. So for anything that's brand new after April 1st, this new pricing will be in effect. Anything that renews after April 1st, so whether you have the annual paid monthly or monthly licenses, you will see that change happen, especially if you're on that track. And then anything that you upgrade from, say, a month-to-month type payment to annual paid monthly, if it's done after April 1st, it will be liable to this price change. But anything done prior to April 1st will not be affected by the change until the next year. So it's kind of like securing that price as long as you do it ahead of time, which is part of why we want to have this webinar and inform people, so while they still have that option, instead of when they do see their bill after April 1st and they're wondering if it's a strange version of April Fools.
Not the April Fools we know and love, that's for sure.
So what can you do about this, right? So what I just mentioned, right, about the one scenario of being able to renew prior to April 1st, or maybe upgrading from month to month to annual paid monthly prior to April 1st, you can kind of get in under that deadline and be able to save some money before next year. The best thing, obviously, we're going to be tooting our own horn here, is to talk to your QuadBridge account manager, have that assessment done so that they can look at your actual utilization of licensing, so that they can best advise you on which of these types of scenarios or options will fit best for you. Should you move a portion of your workforce to the annually licenses? Like, are you planning to have at least more than half your workforce a year from now, right? Is the kind of philosophical question you want to start with. Have QuadBridge run those tools on your system so that they can see the actual data, and not just, what we feel like most of our users are comfortable with E3, but we're not sure. No, let's get the real data. Let's get the data to speak, and then we can give you the best advice to save you some money.
Thanks, Alex. So it sounds like there's definitely some options on the table for how you structure your purchases of licenses under those 3 new buckets. And Alex, is there anything that our attendees can do in terms of their renewal date? What if I have a renewal date that's set for September? Is there anything I can do to try to lock in a portion of my licensing early, or anything like that we can play with to support them?
There usually is, and it goes, especially if you are on what's called CSP, which we'll go into more details coming soon. But it's because of that flexibility. And one word that I think Microsoft invented, but whenever we shorten it, we understand it, but it's coterminosity, which we talk about co-terming. So you are able to align the billing dates of your different subscriptions. And whenever you talk to experts at QuadBridge, they will show you, okay, so it's going to be that subscription. Because it's coming up in September, we should create another one here so that they're both now in March. So I don't want to confuse everyone too much here, but there are ways to use the system, the rules of the system, to really be able to get under that deadline of April 1st and to kind of put off that price increase for a full year.
Thanks, Alex. I see a lot of questions coming into the chat. I'm sure this is a hot topic for everybody to talk about. I'm just going to remind us that we do have time for AMA slotted towards the end of today's session. So we're going to continue on to our next topic, and then we will circle back to all the questions that have been popping up in the chat. But thank you so much for your engagement, everyone. Alex, carrying on to our next key update. Talk to us about what's happening with agreements.
Yes. So when it comes to purchasing Microsoft licensing, not everyone goes through the same options. If you are a Fortune 100 company, like you will have tens of thousands of users, and you will have an agreement with Microsoft, an enterprise agreement. Whenever you are an SMB or even a mid-size enterprise, you may work with different partners that are called MSPs, and they resell licenses from Microsoft, on behalf of Microsoft to you through what's called the Cloud Solution Provider program. There's also a third option. Well, there was a third option, which is, purchasing directly from Microsoft on their website, right? But in the context of businesses and enterprise, it was just not really an option, because as soon as you purchased something on the Microsoft website, it would create its own invoice. So if you have 100 employees in your company and you have 14 different types of licenses, you're getting 15 invoices minimum from Microsoft each month. So it should come with some sort of prescription for your bookkeeper to do that. So it has started as of January 1st this year. Microsoft thought there was a bit of overlap between what was on CSP, what was on enterprise agreement, and that third option, Microsoft Direct, was just not being used. So now they've kind of shuffled the cards a little bit, so that for enterprise agreements, instead of having a 500 user minimum, it now requires 2,400 users or more to even begin to apply for this type of program. So you want to have a very large workforce. You want to have a very mature type of need to be able to really be in the right track with an enterprise agreement. Those are great for 10,000 users or more, or things like that. It's great to have that fleet of cars, right? We were kind of joking earlier, like that fleet of F-150s. Everyone gets an F-150. The second track that Microsoft has introduced is called the MCA-E, so the Microsoft Customer Agreement-Enterprise. This is what was Microsoft Direct. So you are purchasing directly from Microsoft, but the improvement is that now they are creating that enterprise profile for you, so that even if you do have 14 different subscriptions, you will get just one monthly bill. So it's slightly less headaches to deal with Microsoft directly. And we'll see in some of the slides, which type of business does this apply to. And then, of course, for everything else, right, as well as sometimes what we feel, more than 2,400 users, especially if it's not a mature type of workforce and you do need some flexibility. Well, CSP is the way to go. So since January 1st, if you were on the enterprise agreement, Microsoft has started slowly but surely to send you notices and emails about the fact that you're not going to be able to renew on the enterprise agreement. Some of you may have your enterprise agreement through what's called a licensed service provider, an LSP, and they may have offered you a enterprise agreement light type of offer. Like they kind of make it seem like they're renewing your enterprise agreement, but it's not. It's really like MCA-E or CSP for them. So if you are in that in that level of enterprise agreement, 2,400 users or less, do look at everything coming your way. Do look at all those contracts, those renewals, those updates, read all of the fine print, and ideally get a second opinion. Talk to Quadbridge, talk to Microsoft reps, see what's available for you out there, because the enterprise agreements are 3-year type of agreements. So you should get some sort of notification from Microsoft once you're in your 3rd year. So you should be able to, this started only in January, so not a lot of enterprise agreements are aware of it, but they're all, time is moving and they're getting their notices. There is going to be the option to transition to MCA-E or CSP. Again, read very carefully to see what they're offering for you. You do want to start 6 months ahead, especially if you're thinking about CSP as an offer, because on the enterprise agreement, like I just mentioned, everyone was getting a Ford F-150, right? Like everyone, same type of licensing. But on CSP, you do have the option of all types of licensing, and like Al joked that earlier, you can even Uber a F-150 if that's what you want for the day. So if you have needs for your company that are less than the licensing you're getting from the enterprise agreement, you could start right away provision on CSP with those different types of licenses. You don't have to wait for your contract to end. You just have to be in that last year. And major important point, which is why we're talking about, getting some sort of second opinion and all of that. whether you're going to move to CSP or MCAE, there is going to be a need to plan for software assurance and support, because those were big components of the enterprise agreements that are either not available or different on the other channels, and that's going to be the thing with the biggest impact for end customers. Kind of a different approach to licensing.
Thanks, Alex. So what should everyone do if you are falling into that category who is impacted? If you're currently on an EA and you have less than 2,400 users or devices today, or even if you're on an EA in general, what guidance do we want to give to everybody on the phone today?
Right. No, but that is a great point, because even though this only affects 2,400 users or less, there are some other changes on the EA side that make it more challenging, I will say, for the providers that offer the enterprise agreement. And it is kind of the oldest expression in the world, which is the writing is on the wall, right? So it comes from the Babylonians, right? But it is applicable today that enterprise agreements, unless you are in the tens of thousands of employees with a very mature need, you are going to want to look at other options as proactively as possible. So even if you don't fall into that first wave of being offboarded from enterprise agreements onto either the MCAE or CSP, know that it's not going to be the only wave. Things are going to change on that way. So if you want to be proactive and not have to react to Microsoft's news, you may want to consider your other options as soon as possible. This is the slide that you may want to screenshot if you're going to screenshot only one slide from this presentation, because it's a little comparison chart of the three licensing structures. So you can kind of see even though like EA is going away for those 2,400 users or less, we're kind of showing it on the left column as a standard as to what was there and what was not. As I mentioned, software assurance and support are the biggest factors. I like how we wrote limited Microsoft support for the MCAE. That's because it's not paid. The support that comes with the MCAE. So if anyone's ever, had to deal with non-paid Microsoft support, it's kind of a little bit like gravity, right? Like we know it exists, but no one has ever been able to see it. It's very hard to detect on that. So we don't recommend, unless you have a, sizable internal IT, to be able to handle these types of needs, it's probably a lot better to go on CSP whenever you were used to having that paid enterprise agreement Microsoft support that was already included in that service. It's not the same thing on the MCA, not at all.
Thanks, Alex. So I've spent some time with customers, and oftentimes when I hear about their Microsoft licensing, they think that the EA is the be-all, end-all for the business. But I know you and I were having an interesting conversation as we were preparing for this. Maybe you could just talk us through some of the highlights of the differences when you're considering an EA in general against a CSP agreement.
Mm-hmm. It is like I've mentioned a couple of times earlier, like EA is a great, a great offer for the right size and the right maturity of organization, right? Just like having a fleet of cars for your company does make sense when you get into the tens of thousands of employees. But because of that, because of those very, very large customers, people talk with each other, they have different conferences and things like that. So they hear about, oh no, we're on the EA, everything is great. The price that we pay for the M365 E3 license is, almost half the price that you can get on CSP. Like your provider can't even get the same discount that we get right now. That may be true for an organization of 10, 20, 30,000 users. But do they really all need M365 E3? Do they all have those exact needs? So when it comes to CSP, instead of having a one size fits all, we do create personas for the different profiles of the users within your company. And some users, they only check the email to know when the office Christmas party is this year, and that's the only time that they're ever going to look at their email, right? So they don't need a 100 gig mailbox with unlimited archiving and all of that, right? But on the EA, they have to. You're paying less for the E3 license for that user, but that user could do much better with an F1 license that's not even $5, right? So whenever you look at your bill in the month or the year, CSP is going to win unless you have, again, tens of thousands of users and they all have very similar mature type needs. So it's very important if you are in that 2,400, to have that second opinion. But even if you have more than 2,400 users and you've never kind of questioned, it's like there's more than one license that we can get from Microsoft. It's not just everything E3 or E5. There's hundreds of different licenses that you can get from Microsoft, which is why companies like Quadbridge have a tool that they've made to help you assess your licensing needs. So it's definitely worth the conversation, especially because it's almost like somebody with a British accent talking to someone from Texas, right? Like they're both speaking English, but it's going to take some adjustments, from one accent, from one expression to the other. So when you're coming from EA, going on CSP, it's all still Microsoft, but the earlier the better, because there is going to be some transition and some kind of new words, new terminology, new ways of thinking about things. I don't know how good I'm doing on time or not.
Well, let me ask you one more thing before we bring Al more into the conversation. So we're seeing bullet 3 on this slide, Alex, around some promotions and incentives. Those can equate to some pretty big discounts for customers when you're using those correctly. Maybe you could just walk us through what promotions and incentives are relevant in this case, and maybe headline any others that our attendees on this call today could be taking advantage of.
Yeah. So right now, as of December for a few of them, but definitely since January as well, Microsoft has kind of paved the way for those transitions from EA to CSP. So there are 3 very important promotions that are good for up to 1 year on licensing. So M365 E3, M365 E5, and M365 Business Premium have an extra 15% discount on those SKUs for up to a year. So everything that we've talked about so far about choosing monthly or annual options, annual paid monthly, annual, this can kind of play into that equation as well, that extra 15%. You would think, right, that those promotions are only available to new customers to Microsoft. But Microsoft understands the change from EA to CSP is not something that customers wanted. So they are allowing, the customers moving from EA to CSP to count as brand new and to profit from those promotions. Obviously, subject to details and conditions and all that. Like it's going to be on a tenant to tenant validation because those promotions are directly from Microsoft. So whenever you contact your Quadbridge account manager, they'll be able to tell you, yes, you do qualify, or no, you don't qualify because of whatever reason, what happened. But the great majority of you should qualify for this. And there's even, if you've heard about the Teams, no Teams type of thing that's going on right now with Microsoft licensing and the EU rules, you will be allowed to keep your with Teams licenses coming from EA to CSP, even though it is a brand new subscription and it counts as a new customer. Again, this one I'm saying with a subject to terms and conditions and Microsoft rules. as
course.
of March 18th, 2025, this
Okay.
is the current stance from Microsoft.
Thanks, Alex. And I definitely want to invite Al into the conversation as we take a quick look at the recap of these announcements and transition into some insights on what we can do given a lot of updates that you guys just heard today. Al, how would you kind of recap the moment in time that we're in with Microsoft right now?
So, things are changing. And what you need in your corner is a trusted advisor to help you navigate Microsoft licenses, understand which the right option to choose, and work at this time to optimize your renewal with Microsoft licenses. So you need a trusted advisor. What we do is we work with a tool called the QBX tool that helps customers make data-driven decisions on optimizing their spend with Microsoft. Data is important. Having the tool that gives you the data to make an informed decision is our recommendation and the right approach. And that's
Thanks, Al.
because, go ahead.
Nope, absolutely. I know we're excited to show this ugly truth slide.
And that's because from CoreView research, which is a recently conducted research, a good 56% of the average businesses out there have licenses that are either inactive, underutilized, overassigned, unassigned. And this is because different business units have bought licenses for one-off projects that they've forgotten about, they're not tracked properly. And so customers pay for licenses that are not used, right? Or users that have left the organization and they haven't been replaced. That's why you have, this very, very interesting but factual stat that CoreView research has come up with. This equates to thousands of dollars that customers are spending annually on spend they don't need to. So how can QuadBridge help you, right? So number one, think about three things, or four things actually. Cost optimization and savings using our QBX tool. Number two, it helps you drive compliance and prepare for Microsoft audits. And Alex, I think you have a very interesting perspective on the frequency of audits that are only going to increase from Microsoft, right?
Absolutely. Like we talked about before, prior, Microsoft is going all in on AI, and they are, eating their own chatter and utilizing it wherever they can. One of those areas is to verify compliance from end customer environments. So in the past, 10 years, it was kind of like winning the lottery, getting an audit from Microsoft. I was like, oh no, okay, so what do I do now? Like, you would Google, if I get an audit, and you would only see other people asking, what do I do, right? Since January 1st, and for anyone out there who deals with IT on a different level, go to the MSP subreddit, go to Google this, you will see that Microsoft has been extremely active in notifying customers whenever they're out of compliance for licensing. And you may, as a customer, not even kind of grasp what that means. What could compliance mean? As am I committing a crime? Am I doing something? Am I using the service like I'm not supposed to? Well, in a nutshell, other than using real tools like QuadBridge will offer, in a nutshell, there's certain services from Microsoft that come with a license that are organization-wide, and other services that are just based on the license. So for example, if you add a license to a user that includes a mailbox, that user will get that mailbox. Nobody else on the tenant, nobody else in your company is going to get a mailbox. Only the user we assign that license to. But if on top of assigning that mailbox, we add a service to say, hey, check for phishing, those bad fake emails that want you to click on malicious links and things like that. Well, the anti-phishing service from Microsoft is something that can only be turned on or off at the organizational level. It's kind of like putting a filter on everything that's coming in. So either you have the filter or you don't. You can't just say, oh, filter just for this guy or for that girl or for this. So it is something like that. So a lot of different providers, different vendors, people, I will give them the benefit of the doubt, may have not been aware of the different rules and compliance requirements from Microsoft, but they would just add one license with that service and a bunch of other licenses without that service, knowing that the service will be turned on and everybody would profit. So these customers are now getting notifications from Microsoft, and that's only going to amplify. And I fear that right now it's just a, hey, get your licensing, up to strut, get your house in order, get your spring cleaning done. But soon later on, it will start to carry penalties and potential, other detrimental effects like losing the environment and things like that. So unless you're part of the 8%, was that it, Melanie? 8%, like 92% as Microsoft as their core. So unless you're 8%, you do want to remain compliant.
Thanks, Alex. So, we help you drive compliance by ensuring proper licenses are allocated to the right users, right business units, and so that you proactively avoid over licensing and being out of compliance. We help you maximize your Microsoft investments. So the product stack is getting increasingly feature rich, right? So understanding how to use these features as per your business needs by department is what we help you to do by analyzing the data and showing you where to maximize your spend and get maximum ROI. We also help you with scalability and future planning, right? Scale up, scale down, don't buy what you need now, but in the future you have a project or two on the go and you need specific licenses. We help you plan for the future. And lastly, but not the least, this is why this is important to finance departments and CFOs. We help accurately budget for the future. So we can predict your spend using our tool and help you drive and prepare for the future.
Thanks, Al. So a lot of what we've been talking about there is all just around our Microsoft licensing assessment. And I think one big buzzword that I want to mention to everybody on the line right now is that our Microsoft licensing assessment is 100% free. So you can work with QuadBridge to do a review of your licenses, get consulting as you're navigating these challenges. You don't have to be working with us already. We can work through this with you to go through an assessment with your team and help you plan for the future. And of course, as you work with QuadBridge for all of your licensing needs, you unlock a lot of the benefits that Al has spoken about. Al, maybe we'll just go ahead and show one of the case studies of some of the cost savings that our customers have experienced in working through this process with us.
Yeah, so here's a case where, we worked with a client to assess their current spend, assess where they were overspending money on licenses. We ran the QBX tool, and we have a couple of Microsoft subject matter experts dedicated to this practice, so to speak, and we came up with helping them save almost $4,000 a month on licensing by helping them unbundling certain licenses to save money, right? And in this economy, who doesn't like to save, right?
It's all about those data-driven insights that through a Microsoft licensing assessment, as well as through working with QuadBridge, that you can unlock. But I definitely encourage everyone on the call today to contact your QuadBridge account manager to learn a little bit more about that project and take advantage of that fully free offering. To make sure we have enough time in today, I'd like to jump ahead and take any questions that we have at this time. As I said at the start, my goal today is to make sure everybody who's leaving this conversation today understands the impact of any of these changes on yourselves. So if you have any questions at this time, please add them into the question panel on the right. And we're going to go ahead and take a look there right now and get live answers to all of your questions and to my presenters. If we can answer these as succinctly as possible to make sure that we can have enough time in today's allotted time to address all the questions. So let's start here. We have a question around my annual commit paid monthly contracts renew in October. Will the current price stay the same until then, or will they increase right away after April 1st? Alex, maybe you could just clarify.
Yeah, so if you have an annual commitment, annual paid monthly, and you mentioned October as the date, that is your renewal date. So any price increase, any other unannounced price increase would only affect your subscription upon its renewal in October. So you would have another 5-6 months of the old price before having the plus 5% upon your renewal starting in October.
Thanks, Alex. Another question in the chat, just to clarify. If a customer has an existing annual or monthly subscription that renews in, let's say, July, can they still add licenses to the subscription to their renewal without incurring the increase? Or do they incur the increase as we head starting after April 1st to any changes they make?
So it's a great question because it is kind of counterintuitive. You would think, okay, we're after April 1st, I'm adding licenses, so I should pay the new price. But because of the way subscriptions work with Microsoft, it really is under that contract that you have with that subscription that is not going to change until July. So anything that you do between now and July, even if you were to add additional seats to your existing subscription, would be under your current price. All of those, what we call seats on that subscription, will be liable to the new price come July on your next renewal. But anything that you add between now and July would be under your current/old price.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Alex. Another question: are there any price increases happening for on-prem licensing? Sorry.
Not that I'm aware of, but when it comes to what we talked about, CSP, cloud solutions provider, like not enterprise agreement, we do have a model where instead of giving you perpetual licensing, we give you a subscription to those same services. So those subscription, depending on the track that you choose, would fall under the same 100%, 105%, or 120%, depending on what you choose.
Thanks, Alex. Now, switching over to one of our earlier discussion points on the Windows 10 updates. A couple questions in the panel here. When it comes to Windows servers, such as 2019, they share a lot of Windows 10 patches. What is the status of Windows servers, in particular 2019?
As far as I'm aware, Windows Server 2019 is still within the scope of service. There probably is an end of service date. If you go to M365 roadmap, you would be able to find out exactly when it is slated to be out of service. But before it goes out of service, it goes into extended service. So you'll know for Windows Server long ahead of time prior to its end of life. Like I still see some partners with 2008 R2 for Windows Server. So 2019, you're good. You're good for a little bit. Don't. But it is true that since they do share a lot of the same patching with Windows 10, that it would kind of generate that question. So I get where they're coming from for that question, but at least on the Windows Server side, you don't have to worry about it just yet.
Okay. And similarly, and kind of answered in your question, but let's just make sure this is explicitly clear for everyone. When Windows 7 reached end of life, Microsoft continued to issue security patches until a few years ago. So are they planning on doing the same thing this time around? Is October 2025 just the big scary date that they want? What wiggle room can our attendees kind of think about that they have on this end of life?
So I understand and I respect that this is not this person's first rodeo with Microsoft announcements. and that in the recent years, especially, yes, when it came to Windows 7, it felt a little bit like a game of an unhealthy game of chicken, where Microsoft would say, okay, upgrade by this date, we're not going to give you any more updates or anything like that. And then not enough people did. And then security flaws came, and Microsoft decided to issue security updates anyway, even though they had said that they wouldn't do it. But for Windows 10 end of service, I do believe Microsoft has learned from the Windows 7 debacle, I guess we could call it. So I do believe that they will stick to their guns on this. Like Al mentioned, there is already the option for the extra year of the extended security updates that you will have to pay for. So having that, arrow in their quiver, I don't believe that they would, bearing an unprecedented, massive 0-day flaw in the wild that would, affect. Like Microsoft has been known to do that in the past, even on Windows XP. It has happened for that, just kind of being a good corporate citizen on that front. But I would not want to, stand in front of the train thinking that it's going to stop when it comes to this. It's a much safer bet to start planning for it and to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think our advice is don't take the risk. Let's be prudent, and the $30 per user is only for critical security updates, and the important word is critical and the definition of critical, right? So if Microsoft deems it's not critical, but it's critical to you, you're out of luck.
Yeah, that's a great point, Al. So not to take the risk on this time around and have a fully baked plan on how you're going to manage that update across your systems. We're going to allow just time for just 2 more questions here, and I'm just grabbing them from the panel right now. So for anybody who we weren't able to get to your questions today, we will follow up with you with more feedback to your questions here. One question in the chat, coming back to our licensing side, what if we were to get to our renewal date and do nothing for licensing silo? So will the prices automatically rise by 20% by the next renewal? What happens if we just take a do nothing approach here?
It really depends on where you are coming from, right? So if you are already on annual paid monthly and you do nothing, well, come your next renewal, your price will increase by 5%. If you are currently on a month-to-month, you're already paying 120% of the annual price. No change after April 1st. If you're already paying ahead annual, prepaid, annual, there's not going to be a change for you as well. So it really is mainly for annual paid monthly. It's worth the check, especially since like Al was talking about, like planning ahead, having that roadmap, getting that budget ahead of time so that there's no bad surprises on that. You would, you'd be amazed, how much money you can save by doing a nice cleaning up of that. I'm reminded of, like back in the day in a prior life, I used to work at a bank, and we had a big supply room with lots of ink and cartridges and paper and things like that. And we had to have somebody in charge of ordering new paper whenever things were missing. But at least somebody was going to that room once in a while to make sure that we were using the stuff that wasn't there, and we weren't just ordering more and more things that we weren't using. And because of all of the, like Al mentioned again, the service-rich features that come on the licensing, you're probably purchasing stuff and putting it in your supply room, but nobody's ever checking it. And you're going to have a ton of ink that you're never going to use because it was included in the licensing and you paid for it and all that. So that I would say, it's worth to check out.
Absolutely, Alex. I will caveat that the attendee who submitted this question did preface it that not that they're planning on doing this, but they just wanted to understand. They did clarify, as we've been talking here, they're already paying month to month with a monthly commit. So as a result of this announcement, there's no impact on them, right?
Exactly. No impact, or just still paying the most expensive track out there.
Yeah. So still, it may make sense for them to evaluate, is there a portion of their licenses that they could lock in at a annual commit paid monthly, which would reduce a portion of their costs by 15% if they can do that. So still some area for optimization there.
Yep.
The last question that we'll take for today is somebody looking for some more clarity on how to get access to our QBX tool and how to leverage it. Al, maybe you could share a little bit more about how you can get access to the QBX tool for Microsoft license optimization.
The best way to get access is to contact your QuadBridge account executive. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got a team that that is going to be dedicated to working with our account executives and working with all our customers to help them run the tool, get the data, develop reports, and then walk you through what the reports tell you, right? And then that allow you to work with us to make informed, data-driven decisions.
Thanks, Al. So a very hands-on approach from the QuadBridge team when you're using the QBX tool. And I know that we have some customers who've been using it for a while now who are more mature and they love the tool, and they're using it in unique ways to create custom reports and things like that. So our guidance is, yes, work with us on a Microsoft license assessment, completely free. They'll help you navigate these changes. And if you are a user of, if you're already with QuadBridge, you should have access to the QBX tool and get engaged with your QuadBridge account manager, and we will make sure that you're making the most of your access today.